No, the commissioners were never given an office. I was sitting in an open space where all the other commissioners were sitting. This was on the second floor.
And what were the commissioners doing in that open space?
Well, when I went there, Baby Shadi had some SOPs, and they were authenticating them to see whether they were genuine by using a light, and they were scanning them in fact, and then they were entering them by putting their signature.
Okay, so they were scrutinizing them for authenticity and
Yes.
then initialing them if they were authentic.
Yes.
Now, I want you to look at paragraph 10. And your sentence there says, my recollections of the events are not in chronological order. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
So let's run through some of the events that you can tell us about. Do you remember the morning of the 4th of March 2020?
Yes. Ms. Shalik informed me, in fact, she asked me when I was coming in if I saw an ambulance, and I said no. And she said, well, somebody went up with an ambulance, somebody got sick. Then I was told later it was Chairman Mingo, the RO for Region 4.
And as far as you recall, had the tabulation process for Region 4 been concluded by this time?
No, it was not.
Did you subsequently have a conversation with Commissioner Shadi?
That was, well, we were all together there with the SOPs, but in the afternoon she left and said she was being called downstairs by Mr. Jagdio. He was then the opposition leader, because she told me there was a problem with some spreadsheet, someone was trying to use a spreadsheet, and that he wanted to call them off the process.
Sure. And to the best of your information, was that matter later resolved?
Well, she came back and she said everything was okay.
And at about 7:30 that evening, did you receive a request from the DCEO?
Oh yes, she came and asked me to go downstairs, because what she told me was this. She said a girl there was calling numbers since in the morning, and she's pregnant and she's not feeling well. So I went with her, and I saw the girl there. I think she was a DRO, and I inquired from her how she was, because I heard she wasn't well. And that was it. And what Ms. Myers really asked me to do is to plead with the persons that the girl can leave. But then when I tried to plead with them, and I explained that she wasn't well, or she was pregnant, or so, and she didn't eat. That is what I was told. They started to say, but we were promised by Mr. Lowenfield that he would start and finish the tabulation. And they said this is not going on. So their complaint was really based on the tabulation not moving and Mr. Lowenfield's promise. Well, I informed them, Mr. Lowenfield had informed me earlier that he was leaving, but he would be back. That is what he had said.
Just a second.
Sure.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
So, did you ask the people in the room to show some mercy
Of
towards
course,
the
and
employee?
they were not opposed, but they were just concerned that there was this delay.
And did the DCEO say anything when they expressed their concerns about the moving forward of the tabulation process?
No, she didn't say anything. Well, we were hoping for Mr. Lloydfield to come back.
Okay.
But she did mention that they will continue, I think, with East Bank instead of, and people were saying, well, Georgetown has not yet been completed. And she said the personnel from Georgetown was absent. So that is why she was moving to East Bank to continue.
Okay. Now, did you sometime later, have a conversation with Commissioner Gunraj?
Oh, that's the next day.
Okay. And what did Commissioner Gunraj say to you?
We called a meeting because he complained then about the use of spreadsheets, which the commission had never sanctioned. There was no agreement on that, no
Sure.
decision.
So I want to quickly take you to paragraph 15, where you say, I was later told about the use of a spreadsheet with incorrect numbers by Mr. Gunraj. So would you like to correct that to say it was on the following day?
Yes, it would have been the morning of that day.
Okay. So you were telling me that the commissioners had met, or the
Yes.
commissioners were meeting.
We were meeting,
about the use of this spreadsheet.
yes.
And what happened during the
Well,
course of
during
this
that
meeting?
time, I remember the former High Commissioner for Canada, Ms. Chatterjee, knocking on the door to say Mingo was making a declaration.
And when you say Mingo, you
I mean
mean
Chairman Mingo,
the returning
returning
officer of the
officer for
District
Region
4.
4.
And when she said making a declaration, did you understand that to be a declaration of results?
Yes,
Up till that time, as chairman of GCOM, were you aware whether the tabulation for District 4 had been concluded?
I thought that it was still going on.
Did any of the other commissioners say anything when the
Nobody said anything, they all ran out.
Do you recall Commissioner Corbyn saying anything?
Well, Commissioner Corbyn, during the discussion there about the ROs using a spreadsheet, he said the RO, I cannot interfere, I should not interfere with the RO's work because the RO has a certain position.
On the 5th of March 2020, did you go to Ashman's building
Yes.
around 8:30 to 9 in the morning?
Yes, I was there.
And as you were coming in, did you meet anyone?
On the morning of the 5th, so many things happened on that morning.
Would you like to have a look at paragraph 17?
Oh, yes. I saw the American ambassador there. She came up to me, she spoke with me where the commissioners were sitting, and she said, and there were many other diplomats, she said they were called to a meeting. And I saw them from where I was sitting, they entered a glass door, and I think one Miss Karen Cummings came to see them.
And apart from Ms. Cummings, was anyone from GCOM there at that meeting?
Well, I saw Miss Myers escorting Miss Cummings into the room.
Had you previously been advised that this meeting was going to be taking place at Ashman's building?
I was not aware of any meeting. I just thought that seeing that this lady was the Foreign Affairs Minister, she might have come there to meet and greet with them. I wasn't aware that she had any planned meeting with them. So, no, I wasn't aware.
Now, on that day, do you recall anything about a bomb scare?
Yes, it was later that morning. I was sitting in the same square with the commissioners, and Mr. Longfield walked up to me and he said, "Madam Chair, there is a bomb in the building, you should clear the building." And Bibi turned around and said, "I'm not going anywhere, I'm sitting right here, let it kill me." And so we kept.
Did you go anywhere?
No, I sat there.
Okay. Could you just lift your voice a little bit because you want to make sure the
Okay.
audio picks it up?
Yes.
So Bibi Shadiq told you she wasn't going anywhere and you said you weren't going anywhere.
No.
Did any of the other commissioners leave?
Well, in fact, at that point in time, it was just the two of us were sitting there.
Did you believe that there was a bomb there?
No, I thought it was just a prank someone was playing.
Okay. And as chairman, were you advised as to whether any incendiary device was found in the building?
No, I was later told that nothing was found and the building was cleared.
Okay. And who gave you this information?
One of the men who were looking around the building, one of the
Fire services?
Yes.
Later that day, did you hear the DCEO shouting at someone?
It was just around the same time, not too long. I didn't hear her shouting. I saw she was making some signs, and so I walked up to her because I know like she was talking to someone. And I walked up and she said, she explained to me that Anil Giddings had taken the server outside. And so I beckoned to Mr. Giddings through the glass. He said you were aware of Ashman's building, and he was on the road there, and I called him in, and he came in and he explained to me that he took the server out because of the bomb scare, just to preserve the SOPs. And so I told him, now the building is clear, can you kindly bring back the server and continue the work? And he said yes, and that was it.
Okay. Now I want you to take a quick look at paragraphs 21 to 25. At some point on that day, you went upstairs to the third floor.
In the afternoon hours.
Yes. While you were going upstairs, you passed the DCO on the third floor.
Yeah, in the same area, the same room.
And you went to a room within a room on the third
Yes.
floor.
Yes.
When you went into that room, were you able to see outside?
Not really, but when I passed the DCO, I saw where she was sitting. She had something like accounting, like she was doing some account with receipts or some accounting. There were a lot of documents.
Okay. So she seemed to be working.
Yes, she was working.
And did you go up to the third? What caused you to go up to the third floor?
Because I felt a bit dizzy, I wasn't feeling well. There were so many things on my mind, I was actually shaking. Because then, you see, with the declaration, and then you had this thing happen. There were so many events. There was an injunction filed by Mr. Nandalal, then against the declaration, and there were so many things on my mind, and I wanted to know what to do, the next step. So I just couldn't be bothered with anybody. I went up there just to have a quiet moment. In fact, my security detail was calling on me to leave, but I said I'll spend some time in a quiet moment up there and just reflect on everything which had happened.
But did you say you couldn't be bothered with anybody?
No, I didn't want to speak with anyone.
You wanted time to
I
think.
just wanted time because I was not feeling too well. I felt a bit dizzy and I just wanted to be by myself.
Now, while you were in that room, were you able to hear sounds from outside?
I heard sounds from outside, and the sounds outside, I heard a lot of sounds. But then, after I heard people say, we want the chairman, and then I heard footsteps, and like people were rushing into the building, and then I heard they say they'll break the door. And I panicked. I became very much afraid. And I said, look, and I dialed Miss Amna Ali and I called her because I was afraid for my life. I thought people were coming to harm me.
I called Miss Amna Ali. It's there.
Okay,
Yes, because I know her.
Paragraph 23.
And she told me she would be calling someone.
At that time, were you aware that the people on the outside thought you were being held captive?
I wasn't so aware, but then afterwards I realized that when I saw who were the persons who tried to break, I saw a judge and I saw Inspector Narayan, and they would not harm me.
Okay. During this,
Because the first thing they asked me, are you all right? And I said yes. And then they looked like they had some relief.
when you say you saw Josh, you mean Josh Kanhai?
Yes.
When you went up to the third floor, were you taking phone calls and messages?
No,
And can you tell us why?
I just wanted a quiet moment.
And
But people were calling me. I
Yes.
was receiving a lot of calls, but I couldn't talk to anyone. I didn't feel up to it to talk to anyone.
Now, in your paragraph 22, I want you to have a look at the last sentence.
Yes, where I
You
said,
say, I did not know who to trust, is that correct?
yes. So I just wanted to be by myself.
Now, you had a conversation with Amna Ali.
I just called her and I said, I'm not, in a panic. Look, somebody's breaking the door, they're coming for me, and I'm worried. That was it, in that sense. And she said, okay, I'll send somebody. And she said, what? And like she tried to talk to me, but I hung up because I was watching more for the door.
Okay. And do you know that the police were outside?
I wasn't aware that anyone was outside, you see, because I heard footsteps, but I don't know whose footsteps they were. I knew I had a security outside and a driver out there. That's all. And they were in the front room just behind where Miss Roxanne Myers was, because that was the stairway.
Now, during that period of time, while you were up in that room, did you call Inspector Narayan?
In fact, somebody had called me and I tried to press optical, and then in doing so, I called, like, Inspector Narayan number rang, and he asked me if I was okay, and I said, no, I'm not feeling well, and that was it.
Okay. Now, I want you to look at the last sentence of paragraph 24. You see there, you say, I had been told by my security to leave the building.
Yes.
Did they tell you why?
No. This was the backup security. There was a backup car that used to drive behind me, and that gentleman had come into the building. No, he didn't tell me why.
Okay. And do you recall speaking to Senior Superintendent Azor?
That was after when he opened the door. In fact, he told me not to leave the room until he escorted me down.
And then did he eventually escort you down?
He did.
And did you leave with anyone?
Not really. I think my security downstairs. I left the building
Okay.
by my car.
I want you to look at paragraph 26, the last two sentences.
Yes, no, I was asked that question, but I heard somebody saying that Commissioner Corbyn was there preventing people from speaking to me. But I was in such a state that I wasn't aware and watching the people who were around me.
Sure. But you were able to leave the building.
Yes,
And did you return to Ashman's building after that
No.
day?
no,
For the following days, where were you based?
at GCOM headquarters.
Now, you referred earlier in your testimony to an injunction. So is it correct to say that you are aware that an injunction was granted on the 5th of March 2020?
Yes,
And you were served with a court order indicating that a judge had granted an order, had made an order on
Yes.
an oral application?
yes.
And if you see a copy of that later, you'll be able to identify it. Do you recall the 11th of March 2020?
Yes, I do.
Were you also served with a copy of an order on that day?
Yes,
Commissioners, perhaps it has been my practice so far to put in all the exhibits at the end, but would you prefer me to do it as we go along?
Continue your usual practice.
Thank you. Do you recall the 12th of March 2020?
yes.
And on that day, was the tabulation process supposed to restart?
The Chief Justice had given her decision, and the tabulation for Region 4 should have started around 11 that day. But then Miss Myers called me from the building across and said that there was a problem because what she was made to understand, and some set of the persons, that the Chief Justice had said you can do tabulation by
You have to speak
Some-
a little loud.
that the tabulation can be done by using, beside the SOPs, some other means. And I said, look,
But
when-
had that been your understanding of what
no,
Chief Justice?
my understanding was that the Chief Justice had to use the SOPs.
Right,
So I said, look, I do not have the decision here. The decision wasn't shared as yet. So I called the Chief Justice and I asked her if she would grace me with a copy. And she said at that time she was at the Court of Appeal because COVID had just started and they were having a meeting. And as soon as possible, she would let me have it. So I went down to Ashman's building and there were observers there and stakeholders. And Mr. Nascimento said, since you have not read it, let us adjourn and we'll continue when you would have read it.
so two things. One, did you got the written ruling
Yes,
from the
I
Chief
did.
Justice?
I did.
And when you say Mr. Nascimento, do
Kit
you mean?
Nascimento.
Thank you. Now, when Mr.
And Mr. Schumann was there too, and they all agreed that we should, continue.
Okay, so all the party agents who were there at the time agreed
Yes.
that,
And the ambassadors. were
right,
there.
that you should be given the opportunity to look at the ruling.
Yes,
I want to take you to the 12th of March 2020.
Yes.
Did you receive a copy of a letter directed to the returning officer and sent by Mr. Nalal? Can you look at paragraph 30?
Yes, I did. Was in violation, yes.
Yes. So Mr. Nalal was complaining to Mr. Mingo and he copied you on a letter
Yes.
saying that GCOM was in violation of the 11th of March
Yes.
order.
Yes,
And if you
I'm-
see a copy of that letter,
Of
you'll
course.
be able to identify.
yes, he sent it to me.
And on the 13th of March 2020, can you recall what occurred?
Oh, yes, there was a hearing in the Chief Justice Court of a motion, that's a contempt motion, brought against GCOM and the RO. And I went along with the CEO and Mr. Mingo.
You went to court?
Yes, went to court. And then the Chief Justice said she was glad that I was there, and she said she would ask us to speak, that I should speak with Mr. Nandalal. So I told Mr. Nandalal, look, what I will do, I will be,
You gave an undertaking?
yes, I'll facilitate the recount. Although that was in the RO's domain, that is his power, what I said, if the RO had turned down the application for the recount, I'll facilitate it by going to the commission and get their consent, and I would have granted the recount.
Okay, I want you to look at your paragraph 31 from about, I gave an undertaking.
Yes.
And then I have a few questions for you.
You said 31?
Yes, page 6.
Yes, I give this undertaking.
Right. And the undertaking, well, what you have set out there in paragraph 31 is correct with respect to your
Yes,
undertaking?
that the tabulation should go on, because what Mr. Mingo was complaining about, he said that they were stopping him. So I asked that they allow him to finish, go to the end, but when there is a discrepancy, he should stop, a note should be taken of it, it should be noted, and then go to the other figures. Now, and at the end, all the discrepancies must be addressed. And if they were not addressed, then I would have facilitated this recount.
And at that time, were you also aware that any party had up till midday on that day to file a notice for a recount?
It's not that day, the 14th, because this was the day the tabulation was not yet finished. This went on till in the night.
Oh, I see.
The
Okay.
tabulation.
So when we have midday on the 13th, what you really mean to say is midday on the 14th?
It's the 14th, that's a
Okay.
mistake.
Sure. Now, before you left court, did you give instructions to Mr. Mingo?
I spoke with Mr. Mingo and I asked him to listen, if he listened to what the Chief Justice had said, that he should, because there was a complaint by Mr. Nandalal that he was just flashing numbers and not the SOPs. So I told him to flash the SOPs on the wall.
And did the Chief Justice give directions to Mr. Mingo as well?
Yes, but I spoke with him after.
Later that day, did you receive a letter of complaint from Mr. Nandlal?
Yes, Mr. Nandalal was always writing letters. I would have received that letter.
Yes. And essentially, I want you to look at your paragraph 33. And the complaints are summarized in your paragraph 33.
Yes.
And we have a copy of that letter and you'll be able to identify it. Now, the contempt motion, was it determined?
No, it was shelved. The contempt was shelved.
Okay, look at paragraph 34. Was it not dismissed on the 11th of June 2020?
I think it was like 2021. I'm not sure about this date.
Okay.
Because Holodar had died.
Okay, but if you see
I would be able to say.
if you see
Yes.
the order of the court, you'll
I
be
would
able
be
to
able to see.
identify it.
Yes.
Now, on the afternoon of the 13th, did the CEO give you any information?
Yes. He told me they were moving over to the shed in the yard. That's the GCOM headquarters.
And did you ask him for a reason?
Yes, he told me they didn't have sufficient facilities over attachments building.
And do you recall the 14th of March 2020, did you and other commissioners have to go to court on that day?
Oh, the 14th, that was a Saturday. Yes, and Mr. Nandalal was filing some injunction. And I was requested to go to the Diamond Magistrates Court because the High Court was being fumigated. And so I went there, but before that, that morning, I remember receiving a letter from Mr. Ramsey. He was inquiring whether GCOM office he would like to lodge a request for a recount, and he was asking whether the Ashman building would be opened. So I called the CEO and he confirmed yes, it would be open at 9:30. So I told Mr. Ramsey, if it's not opened, I'll be back in town at 11 and he can give me the request. But afterwards he called me and said he got you.
And when you say Mr. Ramson, you mean Charles Ramson?
Yes, Charles Ramsey. He was the company agent.
So after you got to the Diamond Magistrates Court, did you receive certain information?
Yes, we received information that, in fact, says Conrad received. He received a phone call from Neville December telling him that there was an agreement between the president and the opposition leader, whereby the president had asked then CARICOM chairman, Ms. Motley, to field a team to recount the ballots of Region 4. And that the team would be in midnight of that night, that same Saturday night.
And did the commission, GCOM commission, meet that team?
Yes, that was on Sunday evening.
And did they then visit the proposed site of the recount?
That would have been on Monday.
Was a draft order prepared by GCOM for gazetting for the recount?
What happened, we did prepare an order, but then Commissioner Corbin and Commissioner Gunraj and the legal officer left to seek guidance from Mr. Johnny Fungafat, the Chief Parliamentary Counsel at the AG's Chambers. That would have been on the Tuesday.
Okay. And did the Chief Parliamentary Counsel give advice on the matter?
Yes, he did.
And if you see a copy of his advice, you'll be able to
Of course.
identify it. Now, on that day, were you served with another injunction?
I was served with 3 injunctions by a private citizen, Yelita Moore, saying we cannot, GCOM should not abdicate its functions to do, to hand over to the Barbadian people to do any recount.
And did the CARICOM team subsequently leave?
CARICOM, they left on the Wednesday.
Did the Yulita Moore matter eventually get to the Court of Appeal?
Yes,
And What did the Court of Appeal essentially say?
Well, they said that we can continue our recount.
They said GCOM could
GCOM can
continue.
continue the recount.
Do you recall the 3rd of April 2020? If you want to look at paragraph 40 on page 7, because it's a lot of information.
Oh yes, that's Order 60.
Yes. So did GCOM take a decision on that day?
Yes,
And what was the nature of that decision?
that is the Order 60, how it set out the modalities of the recount.
And was that order gazetted
It was gazetted,
on the 4th of May 2020?
yes, and it was amended later.
And if you see copies of those orders, you'll
Of
be able
course,
to identify
yes.
them. Do you recall the 13th of June 2020?
Yes,
And did the commission receive a report from the CEO on that day?
yes.
And essentially, what did that report say?
Well, what the CEO had done, according to Order 60, he had to tabulate the results from the orders, the recount, on the recount figures.
And had he done that?
Yes, he did that.
And had he done it accurately? Or was he making allegations about
He
figures
did
on the
make
recount?
allegations, and he said these figures, although he gave us the figures, he said that it was marred by anomalies, etc., and allegations of voters impersonation. Therefore, it was not a credible process.
Okay. Now, I want to just refer you to a piece of legislation, the National Assembly Validity of Election Act, Chapter
Yes.
104.
Yes,
Did you have cause to consider that provision on the 13th of June 2020?
yes, of course, and that's where I talk about Article 163, because we can only annul an election under that, the 163, Article 163.
So your position as chairman of GCOM was that GCOM could not, it had to be a court of law
Yes, we're not a court
to
of
make
law.
a decision
Yes, I give a
on
ruling
those
on that.
matters. Was the CEO then requested to prepare and submit a report by 1 p.m. on the 18th of June 2020?
Yes, I wrote him a letter on that.
And on the 18th of June 2020, did he produce a report?
No, he visited my office, and behind him were some marshals, and he said, look, Madam Chair, I was just served this. And that was Eslin David. And I told them that we have meeting at 1:30, and if he would be so kind as to bring this report to the meeting.
And did he attend the
No,
meeting?
he did not return.
Did he give you a reason for not attending?
No.
On the 23rd of June 2020, do you recall whether you received a report from
I
the CEO?
received a report from him, and he said he was be guided by the decision of Eslin David. And he brought me a report where he spoke to valid and credible votes that was based on the Court of Appeal decision, and he invalidated about 100,000 votes.
And those votes had previously been counted as valid?
Of course, by the returning officer.
Was the matter then taken to the Caribbean Court of Justice?
Yes, it went under the name of Ali and David.
And was the CEO's report accepted or discounted? Did the Caribbean Court of
No,
Justice?
the Caribbean Court, through his, no, they dismissed the matter.
Do you recall the 26th of June 2020?
Yes, the CEO issued a press statement.
And if you see a copy of it, you'll be able to recognize it.
Yes,
And in it, he was claiming that he had acted constitutionally.
yes, and he did his duty.
On the 9th of July 2020, did you write to the CEO requesting a report by 2 p.m. on the 10th?
Yes, I did.
And on the 10th, did he give you a report?
No, he brought a letter, asked me for clarification of my letter.
And did you reply to that request?
I replied and I told him my letter of the 9th stands.
And did you then tell him, okay, you have to submit your report by a certain time?
Yes,
And was this 11 a.m. on the 11th of July 2020?
yes. Well, he did. He brought the report, but it contained 10 declarations, which were already, we had moved forward because we were dealing with the recount figures. So I did not accept this.
Okay. And did you further instruct him to submit a report by 2 p.m. on the
I
14th
did.
of July 2020? On the 14th of July, was an application brought by someone called Ms. Sanger Jones?
Yes. And that,
What was that about?
Miss, they were asking the court that to determine whether I can instruct the CEO to bring a report, and that I can't, it was like this, I can't instruct him and tell him what report to bring because I told him the report must be based on the recount figures.
So they were saying that the commission basically had to accept whatever the CEO
yes,
brought.
Yes,
And this application, I take it, was dismissed. Was it appealed?
yes, it was appealed to the Court of Appeal.
And on the 30th of July 2020, did the Court of Appeal dismiss it?
Unanimous. No, there was some, I think it was unanimous.
Okay. Did the CEO eventually provide the commission with a report based on the recount, the actual recount figures?
On the 2nd of August.
And was a declaration then
Yes,
made
a
of the results?
declaration was made.
Thank you. So I am now going to ask you to look at some of the documents to which we referred during your testimony. You spoke of an order of the 5th of March 2020. I'd like you to have a look at this document and tell me whether you are able to say that that is a copy of the order.
Yes, this is it.
I ask that this be admitted as CS2. I have 3 copies for the commissioners. Yeah, these are 2 copies, and this is one. Commissioners, Could I ask the chairman to use the original for the time being, and I have 2 copies?
Certainly.
And you spoke of. You spoke of a court order of the 11th of March made by the then acting. Sorry.
We will have copies of CS2.
This is one of the
This is
Oh, I see. Okay. This is the original.
correct, yes.
So, you spoke of a court order by the then acting Chief Justice dated 11th March 2020. If you see that, will you be able to identify it?
I know.
Might this be admitted as CS3? 3 copies for the commissioners. You spoke of having received a letter by copy which had been addressed to Mr. Mingo, and the letter was dated 12th March 2020. If you see that letter, a copy of that letter, would you be able to identify it?
Yes. Yes, I know this. I'm aware of this.
CS4.
CS4, please, copies for the commissioner. You spoke of a notice of or a motion for contempt proceedings which had been brought against GCOM.
One moment.
Sorry, the last exhibit from Mr. Nandlo,
It's a letter. The letter.
dated March 12th.
Right, the letter.
Is it complete? Copy I have on the first page.
Yes, Commissioner, I see the problem and it will be rectified.
Okay, thank you.
Seems as though photocopying must be a special art.
So many documents.
Yes. So we spoke about a notice of a motion for contempt, and if you see a copy of that, will you be able to identify it?
Yes. Yes, this was a good.
Yes. Might this be admitted as CS5? 3 copies for the commissioner. Commissioners, with respect to CS4, I think I will have to address this afterwards. If it could be admitted conditionally.
Yes.
CS5.
And the matter, the contempt proceedings were eventually dismissed.
Yes, they were.
If you see that decision of the Honorable Acting Chief Justice at the time, will you be able to identify it?
Yes, the applicant had that problem. Yes.
Might that be admitted as CS6? And 3 copies for the commissioners. You referred to a letter dated the 13th of March 2020 from Mr. Nanlal to yourself identifying certain violations which
Yes.
had apparently occurred. And if you see a copy of that letter, will you be able to identify it?
Yes, certainly.
Might this be admitted as CS7? You spoke of receiving some legal advice from the Chief Parliamentary Counsel after GCOM had proposed to make a certain order. If you see that
That's Order 6.
a copy of that advice, will you be able to identify it?
Certainly. Yes, from Charles from
Might that be admitted as CS8? Sorry, CS7? 8, sorry. CS8. Now, you referred to a gazetted order.
That's it.
You refer to a gazetted order number 60 of 2020. If you see a copy of that, will you be able to identify it?
yes. There was an amendment to this order. So
Yes, we'll deal with that separately.
This is order 6.
CS9.
CS9. And there was an amendment to that order, which is 69 of 2020. If you see it, will you be able to identify it?
Yes, yeah, they are them.
CS10. You also referred to a press release issued by the CEO of GCOM on the 26th of June 2020. If you see that, you'll be able to identify it. CS 11. Now, ma'am, I just want to pause and ask you this. Did you receive a request or were you copied on a letter of request dated 12th March 2020 from the European Union Election Observation Mission asking for copies of the SOPs?
Yes.
Or examination
Yes.
of the SOPs?
Yes.
If you see that letter again, will you be able to identify it?
Yes.
It's because of the paper it's written on, it's not the clearest.
This was carbon copy to me. Yes, but we could not because I did not have the SOPs, the CEO.
Right. CS 12, I think. You spoke of a letter from Mr. Lowenfield of the 10th of July 2020 to you, purporting to seek clarification. If you see a copy of that letter, will you be able to identify it?
Yes, this is the letter of clarification.
Might that be CS 13, please? And you spoke of responding to Mr. Lowenfield that very day, indicating that your letter of the 9th of July stood and
Yes.
requiring him to submit his report by 11 o'clock on 11th of July 2020. If you see that letter, will you be able to identify
Yes.
it?
Yes, this is me.
Might that be admitted as CS 14? Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, Judge. These are my questions for this witness.
Yeah. So, we want to take a short break now, and when we return, commissioners have a few questions to put to Ms.
Sylvia. Okay, Judge. Wanna come to our room? Have something to drink, something hot?
What do we?